Welcome to the Ratbag Nomads Lost Camel Adventure, Part 3. So far in the journey, I flew out to Central Australia, put Alice the camel bike together, and headed north towards Darwin. As you may know, Alice is mostly made up of recycled rubbish, and there's been some moments where she's had me worried. My seat is still broken, but it's holding together with pieces of wood. My pedals feel like they're about to fall off. Despite all of Alice's shortcomings, it's been an epic journey through the Red Centre as I've travelled north towards Darwin.
Well, here I am at Daily Waters, and it's my birthday, so I don't really feel like pedalling too much today. So I've asked someone for a lift, and now I'm on my way over to load the camel into the back of their car.
Now, I make no secret of hitchhiking on occasions, but hitchhiking with a camel bike is a special achievement on its own. With every kilometre north, it was getting warmer, and as I made my way further into the tropical regions of northern Australia, the trees had changed their leaves from spindly thin to broad flat and green. Water now crossed under the highway in sections, and there were signs in several different languages warning of no swimming as I was now in crocodile country. An hour later, I got dropped off at Mataranka and headed down to Bitter Springs thermal pools. The springs form from a massive underground limestone formation that is connected to the Great Artesian Basin, where most of Central Australia gets its water. The water feeds out of the spring at 38 degrees. It's nice to have a wash, but at the same time, it's like having a hot bath in the middle of summer. So I decided to head into town.
So I woke up this morning at Daily Waters, and it's the 6th of July, so it's my birthday today. And I'm pretty sure my pedal's about to fall out, so I didn't want the pedal to fall out on my birthday. So I've got to Mataranka, which is a thermal pool, and I've just gone for a swim, and now I've come into town to get some supplies, and I've got a flat tyre. So I decided to use my emergency canister to pump up my tyre so that I can not have to repair a flat tyre on my birthday. But now it's off to have a couple beers and to chill out.
On the way back to camp, some people that I'd met in the store stopped and gave me chocolates for my birthday. Peter and Kay, good people, they made my day, and it was a special surprise as I was feeling a bit down being away from friends and family. The universe gave me a special present. My lazy idea of using the emergency car tyre inflator to fix my flat tyre didn't work. The rear tube started spewing out foam like a fountain. I had to assure the campground manager that it wasn't toxic, a fact that I truly wasn't sure of myself. Clearly it hadn't fixed the punches, and I decided to repair it before resting. That night I checked out world champion whip-cracking cowboy Josh Griggs and had a few drinks with some crazy locals from Tennant Creek. I was woken by some scuffling near my tent. In Bolivia, I'd punched a pig through the wall of my tent when I thought I was getting robbed, and I'm lucky I didn't react that way this time.
What are you doing in my tent, mate? So I've just woken up, and this bloke is just hanging out in my tent. So I've got someone that's come to visit in my tent. You wanna hop out of my tent, buddy? Come on. Come on. Come on. Come out of the tent. You've got to get out of the tent. That's my sleeping bag. No. You can't stay in here. Oh. What's a girl like you doing in a place like this? That's the reaction most people have.
I stayed 2 nights in Bitter Springs campground and started the second day with a swim in the hot pools. Alice made a new friend. It was quite romantic as I leant her against the fence for a couple of hours. It turned out that the owners of Bitter Springs campground were longtime friends of my Auntie Kay. The next morning I bid goodbye to everyone and hit the road bound for Katherine. 110 kilometres later, and my biggest day yet on the bike, I reached Katherine. Katherine is famous for its massive gorge and spectacular views. However, the highlight of my stay was Coco's place. Coco's place felt like the hippie mecca of the Northern Territory and was a wonderful shelter from the harsh desert environment. Coco operates the retreat for international artists and is friendly to cyclists. I met some quirky, outlandish people here and at times it felt like I was at the Mad Hatter's tea party, though I was the only one riding a camel. It was a serene place. Chickens wandered around in the shade of the oasis, and in every direction there were sculptures and paintings. Coco showed me around and explained his Renaissance-style gate that he'd built from fossilized plankton. I could have stayed a month, but I only had one night, and I dragged myself away at lunchtime the next day. I was now a month into my adventure. I felt strong and capable, and when I woke up I wasn't sore or tired. I'd lost weight, and my physique had definitely improved. It's always a process of working up your daily kilometres on any adventure. Becoming bike fit is a bit of a task. It takes about a month of riding every day to wake your body up to what you expect of it. There's also the mental side of it, the long durations on the bike, of being inside your head with no one around, and the absence of the creature comforts, such as showering, high-speed internet or a comfy bed. It's mostly a positive experience detaching from these things, as it gives your brain a chance to reset. Well, not a lot happened today. Wish I could tell you that heaps of things happened, but not much. I pedalled. How long did I pedal? Must have pedalled about 8 hours. Had the wind against me. So I've only done 55 kilometres. Trying to fly a drone and drive a camel bike is very much an art. I crashed 2 times today. Almost got taken out by a truck. Got my fire going over there. I've got to finish cooking and then get the fire out so that people can't see me from the highway. Not that I think that there's anyone dangerous out there like Ivan Milat. You know, the bodies in the barrel is only 900 kilometres down that road. But it's better to go discreet and unseen as much as you can on a camel bike. 2 days later, it was mid-afternoon. The flies were at their worst and it was the peak of the hottest part of the day. I heard my rehab crying and calling for attention, but it was so hot and I was dehydrated and there was no shade. I was planning on fixing it, but at the next town, I never expected it to be so bad. It's not always peaches and cream on these adventures. Of course it's about testing your endurance and strength at times, but it's also about developing processes that stop things from happening. Ramification thinking is what it's called. We are taught it at the Maritime Academy, and working at sea we're all about it. It's about putting into place preventative measures that stop incidences from happening. Usually it's a sequence of preventable events that cause catastrophe. I had finished off my water a few hours earlier, and I hadn't refilled my bottles because I was overly confident on reaching the town. I also didn't listen to the voice in my head about tightening the bearings on my wheel. You see, everything on Alice, as I've said before, except for the chain and tyres, comes from the rubbish tip. My rear wheel and bearings were cactus and needed attention every few days. But due to the heat and the laziness, the whole hub had now collapsed on me. So I was just riding along and then my bike started to, my rear wheel started to have a lot of resistance, and then it just seized up completely, and then I hop off and yeah, the bearings just collapsed. And yeah, it's not an ideal situation because I'm 5 kilometres out of another little town, but I've got no water left, but I'm 5 kilometres from there. So it's not that bad, but I guess I've got to work out what I'm going to do. I pushed Alice towards the town. It was a lonely march into Pine Creek. Of all the cars that had stopped in the past month, sometimes bordering on annoying, no one had stopped. I can't blame them though. I must have been a really strange sight. A dirty looking fellow pushing a camel bike up the highway. It was only 5 kilometres, but it felt like a marathon. My hands high above my head steering Alice in the humid 40 degrees of heat, with no water and only myself to blame. Pine Creek had shrunk in the past 100 years. It was once a thriving gold rush town, and it had significant importance during World War II. Today it's just a few pubs and a caravan park for the grey nomads to stop and check out the history. These remote towns have very busy tourist seasons, and every man and his dog from all over the country turns up here expecting big city services at barley prices, and it just doesn't work like that. I knew I was in the right spot if I was going to get any help with my bike, but I had to play it smart. I strategically sat down at the quiet end of the bar. I didn't even mention Alice. I know I looked dirty, and I probably stank. But the centre of any community, in any country small town, is the local pub. It's a place where people talk out their problems, where friendships are formed, and the centre of civilization of Australia was started. I knew this was the right place to be. The first person to offer help was an old guy named Len, a bike enthusiast from out of town, but with an unfortunate snobbish disposition. He took me for a run out to the local tip and search for bike parts. He informed me before we went that we wouldn't find anything, and then when we returned empty-handed, he reminded me several times that he had told me so. Despite all my troubles, I was actually excited at the possibilities of what was going to happen, for my adventure had begun. I returned to the bar and ordered a burger, charming the barmaids with the story of my journey. My mother had always told me that you catch more flies with honey. Suddenly the chef appeared from the kitchen and met me with a knowing look. He led me to out the back of the pub, and he gave me the wheel of his bike so that I could continue my journey. It was a bit small, and the brakes would no longer work, but they hadn't been working anyway. I was incredibly grateful and overwhelmed by the kindness shown by this stranger. He had proved that you can't keep a good camel down. I had lost faith there for a bit, after being denied a ride into town or even some water, but now it had been restored. After my bike was fixed, I didn't hang around for too long. I only made it about 2 kilometers outside of town and I dropped into a small gully to set up my camp. I wasn't particularly hungry, but I didn't want to waste this meat that I'd been given. I cut it into small bits and wrapped it in alfoil and buried it underneath the coals. I dozed off, but I was woken to the sound of dogs. I turned on my torch and my camp was surrounded. They were either dogs or dingoes, I can't be sure, but all I could think about was saving my meat. I ran out of the tent like a madman, dressed in nothing but my underpants, throwing my thongs and whatever else I could get my hands on. The dogs scattered, but not before they'd taken all my meat except for one piece. I took it inside my tent and guarded it. The dogs stuck around all night, rustling in the leaves, and I didn't get any sleep. It was another hot day, and I was tired from pushing Alice and being harassed by dogs, and I think still suffering the effects of heat stress. The small wheel had me rolling again, however it was slower and every bump went straight to the base of my spine. My flight out of Darwin was 5 days away, and I still had 250 kilometers to get there. I decided to skip visiting Litchfield National Park, when my guardian angels turned up again. Pete and Kay, who had given me the chocolates for my birthday in Mataranka, offered me a lift up the road. I felt blessed by the Aussie spirit of wanting to help. At first it didn't look like Alice would fit, but Pete, being a career truck driver, soon had her strapped down on the drawbar and she was flapping in the wind as I sat in the aircon talking with my friends. We had a beer at the pub and they dropped me off at the turnoff, so with only a few days left until I flew out of Darwin, with my tiny clown wheel on the back, I set off to explore Litchfield National Park. It wasn't long till I found myself on the busy streets of Darwin. It's hard to explain the way that I felt finally reaching the end of the road. I went straight to the beach and put my feet in the water. It was a symbolic gesture that I'd only really thought to myself and what I share with you now. Since starting out, my directions to arrive in Darwin had been pretty simple. Head east from Uluru and up the Lassiter Highway. When I get to the T intersection, turn left and keep going. When my feet are wet, you're in Darwin. Well, here I was. My feet were wet and the camel bike adventure was over. Alice truly had been a magic carpet. She had carried me through the unforgiving terrain of Central Australia, and she truly was a golden ticket. But not just for me. She gave people the opportunity to approach and easily break the ice, to share experiences and have meaningful conversations. Together, Alice and I had met people from all walks of life, from TV reporters to cattle station owners, new immigrants, traditional owners, and a creepy swinging couple that had offered more than just water. The kindness and the willing to give had humbled me, and yet again the world had displayed that there is good in everyone, and that when you strip life back down to the bare basics, it shows itself. I felt sad that it was over, and that it was now time to somehow put Alice in the box and get home. But as I sat there with my feet in the water, I looked over at the horizon of the setting sun. I had 6 weeks to fly to Norway, work on a ship in the North Sea, and then get back to Darwin and somehow cross the Timor Sea and continue my ride to London. Thanks for being part of the adventure, Ratbags, and thanks to everyone that helped me along the way. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe, and check out the next episode of the Ratbag Nomads.